Hi, everyone. I'm just actually going to wait about a minute because we are streaming on Facebook Live as well. So I just want to make sure that everyone is able to get into the webinar session and get themselves settled before we actually start. So I'm just going to wait a minute before I start with the introductions and just go over a couple of logistical things. Feel free if anyone is having any trouble with any audio or video, we do have a chat. So if you would like to put any of your questions or issues or concerns in there, I'll be here throughout the entire webinar, and I'll be able to assist with anyone if they need that help. So hopefully everyone can see the message that I just put in the chat there. Please let me know if you can't see it and I can assist with that. Just going to give it a couple more seconds here. Yes, it should be, for me, it shows up on the bottom of my Zoom screen. It'll say mute and it'll have a little microphone on the top. If you click that, you'll be able to unmute it. Let me know if that helps. Okay, so I'm going to start now. If that doesn't help, I will continue. I'll chat with you in the chat there and to help you with that situation with your mic. But again, thank you everyone for joining our webinar session today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. My name is Sandra and I'm the marketing coordinator at TorontoJobs.ca. And we are joined by Desi, who is going to be presenting this webinar for us today. We're doing a partnership with them. He is the founding partner of Building Perspectives, Inc., and he's going to be talking about how to drive profits through operational efficiency. I don't want to take up too much time here, so just a couple of things. Again, I've mentioned the chat in the beginning here. If anyone is having any concern or issues with anything like audio or video, just put it in the chat and I can help assist with that. Also, we are going to take some questions at the end. So if you do have a question about anything with the presentation today, please feel free to post it into the chat and we'll do our best to answer it at the end. And we'll also put in contact information if in the event we don't get to all the questions. You can always reach out after and one of us can help assist you with any questions that you may have. And we are also actually recording this webinar as well. So I will have a link available after the event. So I can send it to anyone who would like to review the webinar, or you can also head over to our YouTube channel where it will be uploaded there. I think that's all from my end. Again, please feel free to ask any questions if you need any assistance. And I'm going to pass it over to our presenter. And thank you so much for being here with us today, and good luck with your presentation. And I hope everyone enjoys everything that our presenter has to say today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandra. So listen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're coming in from. My name is Desi. I'm a founding partner at Building Perspective, and my hobby and my joy and my professional vocation in life is to apply the principles of Lean Six Sigma to organizations. It's a pleasure for me to talk to you guys today. The topic for today is how to drive profits through operational efficiency. And by the way, when I say operational efficiency, I'm not talking about cutting people or removing coffee from the break room. It's about honest and authentic improvements that we can make in our organizations to make things faster, more agile, and actually a more pleasant experience for most of us to work in the organization. So again, a pleasure for me to talk to you on this topic. We got a lot to cover in 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to download as much sensible information to you all as I possibly can. And hopefully we can spare 5-10 minutes at the end of this to ask some questions. All right, so all of us, most of us who work in companies, we're looking for a great place to work. And what does a great place to work actually look like? Well, no company can survive without a healthy sales pipeline. So hopefully we have a company that's doing well in sales. We want the capacity to support that growth as well. We want to wake up every day and come to a great place to work, enjoy the people that we work with and the processes and systems that we have to engage with. It's great to be proud of what we do and how we contribute to the overall success of the company. If we work with a company that's got a history of success, that gives us a certain sense of comfort as well. And we want to work for a place that has a bright future ahead. This is a tall glass to ask for, but Lean Six Sigma or the process of structured continuous improvement has some sensible ways to make this kind of organization for us. So if you're coming to this webinar and you're looking to understand how you can help to create efficiencies in your organization to drive those profits, this is the high level motivation that you're probably coming here with. So all businesses, all organizations deliver their value. They create themselves, they create products and services for their customers through a collection of what we call processes. And really, philosophically, the definition of a process, it's a process. A process is a set of sequenced activities that transforms inputs into outputs for a customer by consuming resources. So anything that we do in life, anything that we do in our organizations, when there's a step-by-step procedure to accomplish that, it's called the process. Now, if we take that to an organization, what does that actually look like? Well, every organization has some standard kinds of processes. I've listed some of those kinds of processes in this slide here. For example, sales transforms customer inquiries into qualified leads. Order management takes those leads and creates orders that we can actually deliver. Engineering would take engineering requirements and produce designs. Production, if you work in manufacturing, you're consuming raw material that you purchase from vendors and transforming them into finished goods. Accounts receivable, our accountants on the line, they take customer invoices and convert them to payments. Accounts payable, you take vendor bills and pay your vendors. And purchasing are the folks that take customer demand and translate that into inventory for us to consume in production. So these are some of the business processes that we have in an organization, and by making sure that they're healthy and continuously improving, we can find ways to gain efficiency and drive those profits that we're talking about. All right, so all things in this world, including in the companies that we work in, will degrade over time. That's just a fact of life. And even processes will end up deteriorating and degrading over time. What are some of the reasons that cause our internal processes to go sour? Where sometimes it's just it no longer works as designed because things have gotten broken in that process. Spreadsheets have gotten corrupted or software systems have become obsolete. Sometimes it just no longer meets our particular needs. Perhaps as a department, as a company, or even the industry, changes that have happened that make these particular processes no longer viable for us. Sometimes there's just better processes that are out there. People have come up with the digital systems and equipment that produce better processes for what we're doing. This happens quite a lot in manufacturing industries where we've committed to production equipment that works in a particular way, but our competition has grabbed onto better equipment that's producing the similar product faster and with less errors. So sometimes our particular process is no longer the best practice. And the worst case scenario is just our processes are no longer supported. Some companies have large ERP systems, software platforms that they're using. And because of time has passed, those systems are no longer supported by the vendors. So for a variety of reasons, business processes will degrade over time unless we act upon them. All right, so how do we act upon these our processes? Well, structured continuous improvement, or sometimes called process improvement, is the technique that we want to use. There's a variety of names for these kinds of improvement programs, but possibly the most well-known body of knowledge for process improvement is Lean Six Sigma. It's a blend of lean principles with Six Sigma principles that really collectively have provided us with a body of knowledge to help us improve most of the processes within our companies. All right, so many companies have got Lean Six Sigma teams. These are professionals, internally that are dedicated to improving the processes inside their organizations. What happens sometimes is we get focused on particular departments, and we get a siloed view of our organization. So we have a bunch of improvements that are happening. Perhaps we're improving the flow of information in engineering, or we're installing CRM software in the sales part of our organization. But all these improvements are happening in a siloed kind of fashion, and collectively they don't necessarily connect to the strategic direction of the company. And as a result, the collective set of improvements that we're pursuing internally don't yield the sort of financial and business results that we're trying to strive towards. And when we continually invest in continuous improvement activity, and shareholders and senior management don't see the financial improvements connected to it, support for continuous improvement starts to wane. And that's how Lean Six Sigma programs come and go in the market, because companies are not able to connect improvement activities with the business direction of the organization. And that's what we're here to talk about, is to how to connect operational improvements with the business direction, so that we can ensure that these improvements are ultimately driving profits and efficiency for the company. So really, if I boil it down, I could make this a complicated webinar, but in fact, there's really three major steps to ensure that improvements we commit ourselves to yield tangible business and financial results. The first step is to align the organization. So this is not really about continuous improvement at all, but it's about aligning all the objectives throughout the organization in a consistent way. So you might look at an organization and think of it as layered as 3 levels. You got the highest level where the C-level staff sit, you have middle management, and then you have the people actually doing the work, the operators, engineers, those folks doing the work. So what we want to do is align objectives at all 3 levels of that organization. Objectives from the highest level need to be cascaded down to the middle management and right down to operators actually doing the work. So at the highest level, when we talk about aligning organizations, we're typically talking about business and financial types of improvements. All right, so that's the aligned side of that's the first piece, aligning the organization. The second piece is, given what kinds of objectives we're trying to improve, we need to have a clear picture of our organization, a landscape view of what our organization looks like. And in the plan phase, we kind of step back and we draw a picture of what the organization looks like, all the way from, customer request to customer receipt. What's that process looks like? How do we generally operate as a company in this particular industry? That's the planning side of the organization. Knowing our objectives, having a broad look at our organization allows us to figure out what are the targeted improvements necessary that's going to drive value through our end-to-end processes and ultimately make an impact on profits and efficiency. Now, if we don't do this, the alternative, what most people will do, myself included historically, is we focus on the opportunities that we actually see. So if I'm an engineer and I work in engineering, I'm going to see opportunities for improvement in engineering. If I'm in the manufacturing side of things, I'm going to be seeing opportunities to make improvements on the manufacturing floor. However, when you take an overall view of the organization, you're able to look at all these different areas and prioritize them based on the organizational direction, the objectives the company is actually pursuing. And this gives you a very targeted approach to continuous improvement that links your improvement activities to the financial and business direction your company is headed towards. All right, let's talk about what we mean by clear organizational objectives. First of all, what is an objective? Many people will define an objective in many different ways, but when we talk about Lean Six Sigma, an objective has a very, very particular anatomy. We're talking about improving something from a current condition to a future condition by a certain amount of time. So that's the anatomy of an objective from a lean perspective. It's got to have those 3 elements. It's got to have a current state, which we often call an X, a future state, a Y, and a time period by which that gap needs to be filled. So improving something from X to Y by a particular date, that's an example of an objective. In the align phase, we take those objectives and we cascade it down to the different currencies of the organization. So everyone is aligned to a particular set of objectives. So I'll give you an example. At the highest level, the company might be looking to increase market share by 20% in a particular geography. If you cascade that down to the middle part of the organization, that might look like increasing their product set by another 20%. And then if you take it down to the operator level, it might be establishing or implementing new product production processes on the floor. So when you look at these three levels of objectives, they're all different currencies, but they're now related and connected. All right, so talking about Align, what is it? It's a structured planning process that engages multiple levels of the organization to create a clear set of cascaded goals and action plans. That's a bit of a mouthful, so I'm going to break it down a little bit. So it's a structured planning process, which means it's not just about brainstorming or getting together and talking about a strategic path. It's a facilitated conversation that actually takes you from a strategic vision to a data-driven set of objectives. That's what we mean by a structured planning process. And it engages multiple levels of the organization, because when the C-level staff have figured out what their objectives are, they need to socialize it with the next level of management. So it's not something that's just delivered or passed on to the next level of management, but rather there's a conversational technique called catchball that occurs where objectives are socialized with different levels of management. This makes sure that everyone understands the objectives in the same way, and those objectives are actually realizable. Sometimes when you're sitting at the top, at the highest level of an organization, you don't understand the limitations or the challenges in the way of accomplishing your objectives. So that conversation with the next level of management adds a bit of reality to the conversation. And the cascaded set of goals, it finally gets down even right down to the operator level. So a person working in the engineering department, in production control, in purchasing, has objectives that they understand and are committed to and are connected to the highest level objectives in the organization. So this is what we mean by a structured process for aligning objectives in an organization. And it actually forms a backdrop for continuous improvement in general. Just to give you a picture of what a line plan might look like, this is an example of what we call an X matrix. It's called an X matrix for no other reason than the template has an X in the middle of it. But I'll give you a quick summary of how aligning an organization's objectives actually work in this particular template. You see at the bottom, you'll see long-term objectives. So we have a set of objectives here, 3 of them: to be financially free, have a great home, and have great health. They actually get cascaded down to annual objectives here, where someone is trying to increase their net worth. They're trying to reduce utility costs of their home, and finally reduce their weight, perhaps they're on a health program. And these dots here are connecting these annual objectives to these long-term objectives. And finally, when you get to the projects at the very, very top, you have a bunch of projects that are actually connected to the objectives of the year, which are connected to the long-term objectives. This is one example of how you can document cascading sets of objectives within the first step of a continuous improvement journey, which is align. Okay, so if you're interested in applying this kind of process, aligning sort of process to your own organization, there's a few things you should ask yourself. Are goals clear in your organization? Are they documented? Are they communicated at every level? Do you have metrics that are meaningful and used to drive focus? Do action plans exist where they're linked to the strategic priorities of the company? Do you have all the resources, all the levels, and are they focused on the critical priorities? Do you have a kind of governance structure to know when objectives are actually achieved? And finally, is there a way of measuring progress and adjusting those kinds of plans? So if you ask this, if you take these questions back to your organization and ask yourself, are we doing some of these things, or is this a gap that we need to fill for our organization? All right, the second step is to actually develop an end-to-end view of your organization. It's not advised just to look at your strategic objectives and start to design improvements. Rather, it's better to look at the entire organization, its end-to-end processes, and start to discover places where improvements make sense, and to prioritize those improvements. This is the planning phase of an operational improvement journey, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how that actually works. All right, so we map the overall flow of information and material and generate a plan that transforms the current state into a future state. So what we're trying to do is get a pictorial view of what the organization looks like today, create another pictorial view of how we want the organization to look like, and come up with a plan, an action plan that would actually make that transformation happen, right? So some examples of what a current state look like are as follows. So this is an example of a current state of a company. It looks like a manufacturing company with a production control system right at the center of, at the heart of the company. And this is a picture that combines process steps with material flow and informational flow and data collected about the process, so that we get a good understanding of how the process is working today. So once we analyze this process a little bit, we can design what we call a future state. So how we want our organization, how we want production, how we want all the business processes to work together to come up with the future state. So the objective of this phase, or step 2, is to look at the current state and future state and come up with a prioritized list of projects and improvement activities that's going to deliver that particular future state. So that's the second piece of the recipe, is to get an end-to-end view of your business so that you can prioritize improvements in your company. All right, so are you doing this part of continuous improvement well? You can ask some of these questions. Customer wants are clearly defined and quantified. A plan exists to stay ahead of the competition. We regularly quantify the ratio of value to waste in our processes. We know the improvements critical to improve customer experience, and we know clearly the final state we need to reach in our critical processes. If you've answered yes to most of these sort of statements, then congratulations. But if not, then there's an opportunity to develop some aspect of your continuous improvement muscle. All right, the last step is what's most popular, which is actually executing the targeted improvements. We don't talk a lot about the end-to-end view. Many people don't talk about how the organizational direction is related to continuous improvement. Most of the books that we read out there are about targeted improvements, and it's the sort of action-oriented portion of the improvement journey. But without the previous steps, many of those actions can lead to sort of in-process improvements that don't necessarily make an improvement to the highest level of the organization, to our customer experience, or even to our shareholders. But let's talk a little bit about the execution side of things. So a quick overview, we conduct targeted process improvements using a structured improvement techniques to zero in on critical root causes and implement the sustainable solutions. So some of the key words here are, we're using a process of structured continuous improvement. It's not ad hoc, it's not based on opinions and judgment, but it's based on a systematic data-driven approach to uncovering root causes. That's another aspect of continuous improvement, is we always distinguish root causes from symptoms, and rather than put band-aid solutions on symptoms, our goal is to identify those critical root causes and address those, because typically speaking, one root cause is creating multiple symptoms in our organization, and therefore it's always more efficient to look at the root causes and address them first. Of course, all continuous improvement needs an aspect of sustainability. Putting a process in place isn't enough. We need the governance structure, the metrics, the organizational muscle to keep those solutions healthy over time. All right. Lean Six Sigma has been around in some form or fashion for a long time, many decades. And because of that, much of the body of knowledge has sort of been capsulated in a variety of different improvement recipes. Some of them are, for example, strategy deployment, value stream mapping. 5S is a very popular improvement recipe where it's about, its intent is to create visual order. There's creating flow, which is about moving material and information efficiently through your organization. And some of these improvement recipes save us a lot of time rather than boiling the ocean. If we can uncover a particular root cause and apply a particular improvement recipe, we can accelerate our improvement journey. Many of us practitioners have spent the better part of our professional careers mastering the methodologies and the facilitation techniques related to some of these improvement recipes. Now, when you're delivering an improvement, there's kind of 3 different styles of delivery. There's what we call a just do it, which is, it's a simple thing. It's about perhaps putting a monitor on the shop floor, changing a layout in a certain part of your factory, or perhaps introducing some visual management in your company. These are what we call just do it's. It can be done typically by 1 or 2 people, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. An improvement workshop is when the improvement requires a dedicated group of people in a short amount of time. So this is like putting together a cross-functional team, putting them in a room together for about 3 to 5 days and getting them to hack out the root causes and the improvements in a short amount of time. And this is a powerful technique that works in certain instances and can be quite useful to get improvements in your organization quickly. There are other types of improvements that do take 6 to 8 months to actually accomplish and can't be done by a group of people in a short amount of time. We typically call these improvement projects. They're project driven. There's a project plan and a team put together to see these improvements through for a longer period of time. When you do go through an improvement journey, it's important to divide your improvements into these kinds of categories so that you can accelerate your journey. Some questions to ask or some considerations for you. Making process improvements, is it important to us? We make improvements systematically, not just when time permits. Everyone in the company is making process improvements that stick. Everyone uses a common and consistent approach to making improvements. We get measurable business results from our improvements, and we're actually improving the process of improvement itself. If you're able to answer yes to most or all of these questions, you're definitely a best-in-class organization. If not, you can take some feedback and look at how you can improve your execution muscle. So lastly, but not least, you got an entire slide deck, which is available to you, but I wanted to give a one-page recipe of what the whole system looks like. This particular slide shows everything in the align phase, in the plan phase, and in the execution phase. So if this is something you want to share with someone over lunch or at a meeting, you have a slide here just to share that, and puts everything that we talked about today on one sheet of paper for you to navigate your own journey. Again, thanks for taking the time to listen to me. This is probably my single most passion in life. Again, my name is Desi. If you have more information if you have more questions about what we do and how we do it, you can check out our website. Feel free to give me a call as well. And thank you for your time today.
Hi. I was actually just going to ask, are you able to, that contact information there, are you able to put that into the chat?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, just so if anyone would like to contact you after this, they can just copy and paste that into their notes.
I'll do that right now. If I can type my number properly. There you go. You know, when everyone's watching, you can never type. All right, there's my email address and phone number. Does that work?
Actually, oh, sorry. There's a little, it's almost like a little drop-down menu to put in there. Instead of clicking hosts and panelists, you click off everyone. Because I think it actually just only came to me, the contact information. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, that's okay. I got that. So I do this.
Yeah.
Chat. Everyone, there you go.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, perfect. Okay, that way everyone will be able to see it now.
Learn something every day.
And in terms of your presentation, I know you were mentioning the last slide there that sort of encompasses everything all in one. Yeah. Is there a link that you would be able to send to someone, or are you giving out your presentation, or is it just that last page? So if someone wanted to get a copy of that, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can send me an email and I'll give them the entire presentation. The last slide is just to help people sort of have a quick discussion about it, but the entire presentation is available to anyone. Just send me a quick email. I'll send that off.
Okay, yeah. And like I said in the beginning as well, we are recording the webinar. So there is a link that will be available once I get it up on YouTube, and I can send that over to everyone as well if they'd like.
Perfect. I see a few emails coming in here. So
yes. So yeah, so if there's anyone else, I don't see anything in the chat. So there's the chat. I'm just going to scan over everything just before we close the webinar out, because I don't want to miss any opportunity. But the contact information is in the chat if anyone would like to reach out to Desi after. And yeah, again, I'm recording everything, so we'll have everyone will have access to that as well. Is there anything that you would like to add, just in addition to anything that you've already presented today?
Yeah, I mean, we have all sorts of doubts about getting started as far as the continuous improvement is concerned. I know what mistakes we might make, or what steps we might not follow. My advice is the same, is always just to get started. Practice makes perfect. So get started, try something, fail fast, fail quickly, and you'll be off to the races.
Okay. All right. Well, it's 2:30 right now, so I'm just going to thank everyone for joining us today for this webinar. And thank you to those who are watching on Facebook as well. Thanks for joining us if you're on there as well. And if there's nothing else, I'm just going to, I guess, end the webinar. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
That's it for me.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.